The situation you are waking up to is rapidly deteriorating, and the global security landscape has fundamentally shifted overnight.
It is a completely fluid battle space right now.
We are abandoning all standard programming today. You are joining a live, urgent, tactical analysis of a breaking global crisis. We are now in day 2 of what the administration is calling Operation Epic Fury.
A massive, unprecedented, and highly coordinated U.S. and Israeli military strike deep into Iranian territory.
And the human toll is already mounting. It is hitting home right now. At the center of this critical flashpoint, we have confirmation that at least three United States service members have been killed.
Yes.
And 5 others have been seriously injured in these initial operations. The president has issued a stark, immediate statement declaring that the United States will avenge these deaths.
Which escalates the rhetoric significantly.
He issued a grim warning to the American public that he expects more casualties are likely before this conflict concludes. To help you understand the immediate threat and the rapidly evolving theater of operations, I am joined by our senior military strategist. We have an immense amount of ground to cover today, and the stakes could not be higher.
The stakes are quite literally existential right now. The situation on the ground we are looking at is incredibly volatile, and the loss of American service members fundamentally alters the calculus of this entire operation.
We are no longer just dealing with a strategic deterrence mission.
Exactly. We're looking at a highly fluid, highly dangerous regional conflict that is escalating by the hour.
Let us break down this theater of operations, starting with the sheer scale of the strikes and the diplomatic fallout we are seeing this morning. We have just received a sweeping joint statement issued by Dylan Johnson,
the Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs.
Yes, the coalition standing behind the statement is staggering in its unified front. I'm reading this now. It includes the United States, Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates.
That is a massive regional bloc.
They are strongly condemning the indiscriminate missile and drone attacks by the Islamic Republic of Iran. And these Iranian attacks are not just hitting military outposts.
No, they are striking sovereign territories across the region,
including Iraqi Kurdistan and Oman. But here is where the tactical shifts become alarming for the global economy. They are specifically targeting civilian infrastructure,
which is a blatant violation of international law.
Luxury hotels and the international airport in Dubai have been hit. For you listening right now, this is not just about destroying a building. Hitting a luxury hotel in a financial hub like Dubai immediately causes global shipping and business insurance premiums to skyrocket,
which essentially strangles the Gulf economy without Iran needing to sink a single commercial ship.
It is economic warfare.
You have hit on the exact core of their strategy. What is fascinating from a purely analytical standpoint is that this is a textbook execution of asymmetric warfare.
Because they cannot match our conventional military.
Iran knows it cannot match the conventional military might of the United States and Israel combined. The technological and financial gap is simply too vast. So they change the rules of engagement entirely.
By targeting those luxury hotels in Dubai or civilian airports.
Exactly. Tactically, they are attempting to inflict maximum economic and psychological damage. They want to bleed the region's economy and create absolute panic among civilian populations and international investors.
The message they are sending to the Gulf states is clear.
If our regime burns, your economies burn with us. Furthermore, it highlights the cost asymmetry of modern warfare. Listen to these numbers.
Go ahead.
Iran is firing off drones that cost maybe $20,000 to produce. This forces the United States and its allies to fire interceptor missiles that cost upwards of $2 million each.
$2 million per intercept.
It is a war of financial attrition as much as physical destruction.
That brings us directly to the defensive measures currently in place right now. The coalition statement specifically commends the effective air and missile defense cooperation that has prevented a far greater loss of life.
The layered defense net.
Right. For context, you have United States Patriot batteries handling the lower tier, closer atmospheric threats, and THAAD systems.
Terminal high altitude area defense.
Yes, acting as the upper tier shield against incoming ballistic missiles. These systems are talking to regional defense networks to intercept threats in real time. But the sheer volume of this incoming fire has to be testing the limits of that umbrella. How sustainable is this defense web?
It is a highly sophisticated but precariously stretched web. The integration you mentioned between Patriot batteries and THAAD systems is a marvel of modern military engineering.
So it is holding for now.
So far, the intelligence sharing and targeting cooperation between the U.S. and these Arab states has been highly effective at mitigating mass casualties from these drone and missile swarms. But we have to look at the cold mathematics of air defense.
Which are what?
A defense web only has to fail once to result in a catastrophic loss of civilian life. As Iran empties its subterranean arsenals, the sheer volume of incoming fire is specifically designed to overwhelm the radar processing limits and interceptor inventories of these exact defense systems.
They are trying to find the breaking point.
Through sheer saturation, yes.
Which moves us to the offensive side of Operation Epic Fury. Specifically, the strategic decapitation strike that took place overnight. We are getting widespread confirmation of the elimination of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Khamenei,
alongside several other immensely powerful figures within the Islamic regime.
The absolute head of the state has been removed. And this is not just the loss of a commander, this represents the erasure of the core ideological pillar of the state.
This represents an unprecedented power vacuum in modern Middle Eastern history. Ayatollah Khamenei was not merely a political leader. He was a singular, towering figure in their entire governmental and theological structure.
He was the last remaining heavyweight of the 1979 founding generation.
Exactly. It is crucial to understand his historical weight. His predecessor, the founder of the Republic, Ayatollah Khomeini, practically elevated him to that position on his deathbed to ensure the continuity of the revolution.
Even though Khamenei lacked the top-tier religious credentials at the time.
Right. Over the decades, he consolidated unquestioned theological and military authority. With him gone, and other senior figures simultaneously eliminated by these strikes, the structural integrity of the regime is in freefall.
Iran's top national security official has stated that an interim committee will run the country until a successor is chosen.
But the reality is there is no clear successor waiting in the wings who commands anywhere near that same level of devout, unquestioned following across the various factions of the government.
If there's no clear successor, we have to look at who actually has their hands on the levers of power today. An interim committee sounds organized, but given the chaos, it is likely a scramble for control.
Highly likely.
We are probably looking at the rapid formation of a ruling council, a syndicate comprising surviving senior military personnel from the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps.
The IRGC, high-ranking intelligence officers, and powerful clerics trying to maintain day-to-day operations.
But they have never faced a crisis of this magnitude.
That is exactly right. If we connect this to the broader strategy of regime survival, it is highly unlikely a single figurehead emerges immediately from this chaos. The syndicate you described is the most probable outcome.
But it is uncharted territory.
Completely uncharted. They certainly had succession plans drawn up for Khamenei's eventual passing due to old age, but they absolutely did not plan for a sudden, violent decapitation of their entire upper echelon in a single weekend.
The paranoia must be intense.
The paranoia within that newly formed council will be staggering. They will be looking over their shoulders, wondering who has been compromised by Western intelligence, and struggling to project strength to a population that knows the leadership is critically wounded.
And that desperation at the top must have a severe ripple effect down the chain of command. With the ideological figurehead gone, the glue holding the security apparatus together is dissolving.
Quickly.
It seems highly probable that in the coming days, we will see significant defections within the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and specifically among the street militia units, the Basi.
The enforcer.
These are the enforcers who have been brutally cracking down on citizens during protests.
Absolutely. This raises a critical question about unit cohesion under extreme duress. The street militias and lower-ranking IRGC members enforce the regime's will largely because they believe the regime is unshakable.
But now the top leadership is eliminated.
Once they realize the entire structure might actually collapse, basic human self-preservation will kick in. Many of these enforcers live in the very neighborhoods they oppress. If they believe the protective umbrella is gone, they will abandon their posts.
They will shed their uniforms and disappear rather than face the wrath of the public or go down with a sinking ship. A rapid degradation of internal security forces is a highly likely scenario.
That brings us to the starkly contrasting domestic fallout from these strikes, both inside Iran and here in the United States. As a broadcast, we are impartially reporting the facts of these reactions as they unfold on the ground, without endorsing any political viewpoint.
The footage is remarkable.
Inside Iran, social media channels that bypass the government firewall are being flooded with videos of fireworks and widespread street celebrations following the news of the supreme leader's death. However, local reports indicate that citizens remain cautiously optimistic
They know the remnants of the regime's security forces are still heavily armed.
and entirely capable of extreme violence. Meanwhile, the domestic reaction here in the United States is sharply divided in Times Square and Los Angeles.
Which is home to the largest Iranian diaspora outside of Iran.
Massive crowds have poured into the streets. They are celebrating, waving the pre-1979 Persian flag featuring the lion and sun, and holding posters praising the military strikes. One demonstrator explicitly stated to reporters that they had been in a, quote, big jail for 47 years.
The release of generational trauma.
But we must immediately juxtapose this with the scenes in New York City, where significant counter-protests have gathered specifically to condemn the U.S.-led strikes and the escalating violence in the region. To understand these drastically different reactions, we have to look at the demographics.
It gives down to a fundamental demographic divide. Understanding the numbers inside Iran provides the necessary context for this unrest. Iran has a population of roughly 90 million people.
And the overwhelming majority of those citizens are young.
Young and increasingly secular. They were born long after the 1979 revolution. They have zero memory of life under the previous government, the Shah.
All they have ever known is severe domestic oppression.
And the crippling economic isolation imposed by the Islamic Republic. Because of this, more than half the country has shifted entirely away from the regime's strict ideology. They are dealing with hyperinflation and a lack of basic freedoms,
creating a massive ideological rift between the ruling clerics and the general population.
Exactly.
So when we look at who's actually left supporting this newly formed interim committee and ensuring the regime's survival, it is a distinctly armed minority. Our intelligence estimates suggest that perhaps only 20 to 30% of the population remain fiercely devout and loyal to the regime's foundational principles.
But the critical factor is that this 20 to 30% controls the state's weapons.
The military infrastructure and the sprawling intelligence services. That dynamic explains the cautious nature of the celebrations. The youth desperately want a transition of power, but they know a cornered, heavily armed regime is incredibly dangerous.
Precisely. The people celebrating know that the dying gasps of an authoritarian state are often its most violent.
And what about the diaspora?
As for the diaspora reactions you mentioned, you are witnessing the public release of decades of that generational trauma. The exiled crown prince, Reza Pahlavi, has publicly offered to assist in a democratic transition. We are hearing chants of "Long live the king" among certain factions in Los Angeles.
But we have to look at what comes next analytically.
We must remain strictly analytical. The Iranian opposition, both inside and outside the country, is highly fractured. Pahlavi is a known and prominent figure in the West, but his true popularity and political leverage inside Iran remain a massive unknown.
Because free polling does not exist there.
Free polling and free political expression simply do not exist, making it incredibly difficult to predict who the Iranian people would actually coalesce behind if the current government completely falls.
We're looking at a deeply fractured nation internally, but the conflict itself is already spilling over sovereign borders. Let us pivot to the immediate rules of engagement and the looming threat of a multi-front regional war.
Hezbollah has entered the theater.
Hezbollah, Iran's heavily armed proxy in Lebanon, has already joined the offensive. They are actively firing barrages of missiles into northern Israel, opening up a second front. The Gulf states, as we noted with the luxury hotel strikes, have been hit.
The question now is retaliation.
Whether these Arab armies in the Gulf will retaliate directly against Iranian territory, or if they will defer entirely to the United States military to handle the physical strikes.
That is one of the most critical variables in the theater right now. The Gulf states have issued very strongly worded diplomatic statements reserving their absolute right to respond to attacks on their sovereignty.
But a direct conflict is a massive escalation.
Engaging in direct cross-Gulf military conflict with Iran is a massive escalation that they want to avoid if possible. They will likely defer to the United States and Israel to spearhead the offensive operations and dismantle Iran's launch capabilities.
While the Arab states focus their military assets on defensive interceptions and diplomatic isolation.
But there is a threshold. If Iran continues to relentlessly pound commercial hubs in Dubai or Riyadh, those Arab armies may be politically and strategically forced to enter a multi-front war.
Which would fundamentally reshape the power dynamics of the Middle East for generations.
This would be a permanent shift.
And governing the United States' involvement in this potential multi-front war is a very strict legal framework. Here is how this massive operation is legally functioning today. We have a major congressional briefing scheduled for Tuesday.
The clock is ticking on this.
As of right now, there has been no formal legal declaration of war from the United States Congress. For you listening at home, this entire military campaign is functioning under the War Powers Act.
The president is utilizing his Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief.
This legal framework grants the executive branch a strict 60-day window to deploy United States forces into undeclared combat operations. After that 60 days, if congressional approval is not explicitly granted, there is a mandatory 30-day wind-down period to completely withdraw those forces.
So tactically speaking, the Pentagon is operating against a hard 90-day clock.
It is a compressed operational timeline.
It is. But there is significant historical precedent for utilizing this exact framework. We saw this executive authority utilized extensively during the air campaigns in Kosovo in the late 1990s, and again during the intervention in Libya.
So the military is accustomed to this.
Highly accustomed to designing campaign phases that fit within these 60 to 90-day legal windows. The primary goal is to degrade the enemy's command and control so severely within that time frame that a prolonged engagement becomes unnecessary.
But the administration has drawn a very specific, highly publicized red line for this operation, a strict no boots on the ground policy. They are framing it entirely as a remote standoff operation,
relying on air superiority.
We are seeing reliance on the devastating firepower of naval carrier strike groups positioned in the Mediterranean and the Arabian Sea. Fifth-generation fighter jets like the F-35, which can evade radar, and advanced drone networks.
The clear objective is to dismantle the Iranian regime's military infrastructure entirely from the sky.
Without committing American infantry to a ground war.
Correct. And the standoff approach is exactly what Iran's core strategy is trying to break. Iran knows it cannot win a remote war against American air superiority. They cannot shoot down F-35s with any reliability.
So what is their counter strategy?
To inflict so much economic pain, create so much regional chaos, and kill enough American service members at regional bases that the United States is forced to abandon the remote strategy.
And deploy ground troops to secure the region physically.
They want to drag the United States military into a grueling, urban, ground-level quagmire.
Because they are acutely aware of the domestic political calendar in the United States, they know this is an election year.
Exactly. Tehran is banking on the political reality that the American public has little appetite for a new ground war in the Middle East. They believe that if the remote objectives fail to stop the missile barrages and the no boots on the ground red line is breached, the U.S. administration will actively seek a diplomatic off-ramp.
Rather than commit to a massive, protracted ground war during an election cycle.
It is a deadly, high-stakes game of strategic chicken. It is worth noting, however, that the Pentagon has stated their operational timeline for these initial decapitation strikes was slated for 4 to 5 weeks.
And they are currently reporting to Congress that they were significantly ahead of schedule in dismantling Iran's launch capabilities.
They are moving faster than anticipated.
They may be ahead of schedule, but the danger to civilians is far from over. I want to center our focus right now on the immediate, dire threat to you, the listener, and to American citizens globally. The rhetoric coming out of Tehran this morning is not just defiant, it is chillingly specific.
The Deputy Foreign Minister's statement.
The Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister gave a broadcast interview today where he made it explicitly clear. Because the Islamic regime is now fighting for its very survival, they consider any American, whether civilian or military, regardless of location, to be a fair and legitimate target.
If you are an American operating or traveling in the region, the threat level is absolutely critical.
And that explicit threat leads to a final, haunting strategic reality that we all must analyze impartially as this situation unfolds. We are watching the real-time, violent collapse of a regime's central leadership structure.
If the remaining clerics and Revolutionary Guard commanders truly view this as an existential zero-sum fight for their survival,
if they definitively know they're going to lose power and face execution or exile,
what prevents a dying regime from abandoning all conventional military restraint? Strategically speaking, if they have nothing left to lose, we must anticipate the very real possibility of a completely unpredictable, scorched earth final strike.
A scorched earth scenario.
Before the state completely collapses, they could unleash every ballistic missile they have left against global supply chains. Attempt to permanently block the Strait of Hormuz to cripple global energy markets, or level civilian centers across the Gulf.
Simply to ensure their regional enemies suffer catastrophic losses alongside them.
Yes.
A scorched earth scenario from a dying regime aimed directly at the arteries of the global economy. That is the precarious, highly volatile reality we are facing this morning. The theater of operations is incredibly active, the geopolitical fallout is historic, and the threat to American lives and global stability is immediate.
The next 24 hours are critical.
We will continue to monitor the naval deployments, the tactical shifts in the airspace, and the raw intelligence coming out of the Middle East. Stay alert, stay informed, and understand that the global security situation is changing by the minute. This concludes our live tactical analysis and broadcast.